5 is that how you have to write an abstract. So tell a complete story in the abstract. You can follow the CCC format. Okay. So the first sentence orients the readers by introducing the broader field in which the particular research is situated. Okay. So the first sentence means like when you start writing the abstract, whether you're writing it in the structured format or you are writing it in the unstructured format, in the same way you have to write the abstract. Like you have to write the first sentence, or you should start your abstract with by introducing the topic. Okay. Like in which broader field the research is situated. Like you can start writing about the objective. In short, if I say, so you should start writing your abstract with the objective, like what is the objective of writing this research paper, why this research study was done, what is the objective. Then this context is narrowed until it lands on the question that the research answer. So after the objective, you have to write about the question, okay, the research question, which this research paper is answering. Then setting the stage for distinguishing the paper's contribution from the current state of the art by communicating what is missing in the literature, that is the specific gap. Then after that, you have to write what is known about the topic. Okay, what is known about that topic or what is done till date in that research area. And then after that, you can write about the gap. What is a gap which is there, or what is the information which is missing in the literature. That is, you can write about the specific gap and why does that gap matters. Okay, why does that gap or why does that missing information matter so much that the researchers have done a research study just to fill in that gap. So that is, you have to set up a connection between that specific gap and your objective and the objective of doing the study. So suppose the objective of study is to understand the working of a particular instrument. Okay, so the gap should be like the studies has been done about that particular instrument, but still the answer related to that, how that instrument work, or what is the process behind this particular behind the working or principle behind behind that. So that is still a question, so which is still a theory, or it is just a hypothesis. It is not proved yet. So like this, this is just an example, but whatever the topic is or whatever the gap you're talking about in the study, in the particular research study, so that should connect with your objective. Okay, then the content with which this, so this, like when you're writing about the abstract, when you're writing about the objective in the abstract, then then when you have written about the introduction, like what is known about the topic, then what is the gap which is there and how the gap is connected with the objective. So when you're explaining these things, so that means that is related to the context, that sets the context of the abstract. Now after that, you have to write the content. So the content which describes the novel method or approach that you used to fill the gap or question, the executive summary of the result. So then after that, you have to write what you have got in the result, what is the result which is obtained. So in the summary form, you can write that information. So that content, it describes the novel method or the approach that is used to fill the gap or question, the executive summary of the, which is the executive summary of the result. So that is the content. Then after that, you have to write the conclusion. So conclusion is that interprets the result to answer the question that was posed at the end of the context section. There is often a second part to the conclusion section that highlights how this conclusion moves the broader field forward. Okay, so now the conclusion in which you interprets, or you give the result to the answer, to answer the question which was posed at the end of the context section. So when you're providing the answer of the question which was posed to the readers at the end of the context section, so from this you have to start the conclusion. Now the conclusion can also have a second part in which you are telling the readers that how this conclusion or how the results which are or the study, it moves a broader field forward, or what it adds to the medical science or the scientific literature. So that also you have to write. So this is how you can write the abstract following the context, conclusion, and context, content, and conclusion scheme. So I'll repeat that you will start your abstract writing with the objective. So first you will write the objective, then you will write about the question, the research question which the study is answering, and then you will write about the specific gap, okay, and how this gap is connected with the objective. So this sets your context. Then after that, when you are writing about the approach which you have used for doing this study, and also the executive summary of the results, a very brief summary of the result when you are writing, so that is your content. And then after that, you have to write the conclusion. So in that conclusion, you will be writing the answer which you have got uh, to the question which was posed to the readers at the end of the context section. And then you can, after that, you can write about that what this particular study adds to the medical science, or is it a scientific breakthrough, or what is adds to the scientific literature. Okay, understood? Is it clear? Okay, the next you have to, next is rule number 6. Communicate why the paper matters in the introduction. So next, after abstract, the next section comes, that is the introduction. So introduction, always when you're writing, whether the introduction is of a review article, whether or the introduction is of a research article, you have to, when you're writing the introduction, you have to write the introduction from scratch with the minimum information, and step by step you should explain about each and everything about which, like about the drug, about the disease, what your paper is based on. Okay, and then you can write about the gap which is there. So the information for writing the introduction you will get from various literatures or from various studies, the previous studies which are already done, the literatures which are already published. Okay, so introduction, you can say that it is a kind of a scientific review or a literature review. A simplest form of review the introduction is. Okay, so in the introduction you have to highlight the gap, like the current knowledge, whatever the updated knowledge available related to the topic, so that you will be giving. And then after that you will be writing about that what is a gap which is still existing, or why, and why that gap is important. Okay, then so highlight the gap that exists in current knowledge or methods and why it is important. Each paragraph first orients the readers to the topic, a context, sentence or two, and then explains explains what is known in the relevant literature content before landing on the critical unknown, that is the conclusion, that makes the paper matter at the relevant scale. So each paragraph of the introduction section you have to write in a way as the example of the paragraph as I have shown you. So in the same way you have to write this. So starting, you have to start with a claim which you're making, or the topic which is explained in that particular paragraph. So that is your content. Then you will write the explanation or the proof or the evidence you have from the other literatures which are published. So that is that what is known, that you will be writing before landing on to what is unknown, that is the conclusion. Then the introduction should not contain a broad literature review beyond the motivation of the paper. Okay, so then after that, the introduction which should not the introduction should be there. So in the introduction should not, as it is a kind of a literature review, but you have to remember that this is not a literature review. So do not write a very broad literature review, just include the information which is relevant to the paper. Okay, so the information which is relevant to the paper, which is relevant to the topic, that only you have to include. Do not include any additional information, or do not write a very broad literature review. Introduction section is a lengthy section, but it should end in 4 to 5 paragraphs. That's it. It should not be like this, that 1-2 pages you are writing only about the introduction. No. Introduction is a lengthy section, but it should be limited to 4 to 5 paragraphs where you give the knowledge which is available related to that topic till date. Okay, and also the information, and also you write about your write about the gap which is existing. And then you, at the end, when you are ending your introduction, there you can write about your hypothesis and what is your objective for doing the study. Okay, the next is rule number 7. So deliver the results as a sequence of statements supported by figures that connect logically to support the central contribution. Okay, so the result section needs to convince the readers that the central claim is supported by data and logic. So now when you're writing the result, so result is a very critical section, because your result will only reflect that what finding you have got, or what is the information you have got from the literature, or whether your study was done, whether the study which is done, it is done successfully or not. So not only the textual form, but also in the result when you're writing, you have to provide the figures, you have to give the tables, the figures, the graphs, so that the readers can understand it properly. If you write only in the textual form, you're not giving any figure or graph for the understanding purpose, it looks very confusing, and and it will be very difficult also for the readers to understand. And also sometimes the readers do not have much time to invest in reading, so with the help of those tables and graphs, they'll be able to understand it easily. Otherwise, when you are writing the introduction, so when you're writing when you're writing the result section only in the textual form, so it is very confusing. Again and again they have to go through the same information to understand it. So it is always appreciated if in the result section, the findings and all, whatever the calculations are, whatever the findings are, that you will present, or the overall observation or interpretation you present in the form of a table or a graph, so that is easily that so that it can be easily understood. Okay, so the result section needs to convince the readers that the central claim is supported by data and logic. Okay, so for every claim, or for the hypothesis which you had before starting this study, and now when the study is completed, to support that study, you should have a proper data and logic to prove it. Okay, to support that. In the outlining phase of paper preparation, sketch out the logical structure of how your results support your claim, and convert this into a sequence of declarative statements that become the headers of subsections within the result section, and or the title of the figures. So now when you're writing the result section, so for every claim or for every information which you have got, you should have a logical structure to it, means you should have a proper data to prove it. Okay, and now then when you have a proper data to prove it, then the claims which you are making, which you have made, that will be converted into a sequence of declarative statement. Like for example, before starting the study, it is said that paracetamol can be used in the treatment of, can be used as a painkiller also. Okay, that is a claim, that is just a hypothesis. Now after that, when the study was done, a full study, clinical trial study was done, and the researchers, they have a proper data to prove it. So then the same statement is converted into a declarative statement, that the paracetamol is used as can also be used as a painkiller. Okay, so this you can make a declarative statement now, and those declarative statement can also become the headers of subsections which are written in the result, or the title or of the tables or the figures. Okay, the first result paragraph is special in that it typically summarizes the overall approach to the problem outlined in the introduction, along with any key innovative methods that were developed. Okay, so the first paragraph in the results section is very special because it summarizes what is the overall approach to the problem, and also summarizes the overall approach, what is the overall approach to the problem which is outlined in the introduction, and along with any key innovative methods that were developed. Okay, so the key innovative methods, the approach which is used for the study, for doing the study, so that is explained in the first paragraph of the results section. Then each subsequent paragraph in the results section starts with a sentence or two that set up the question that the paragraph answers, such as the following: to verify that there are no artifacts, or we next tested whether calcium ion flux through L-type calcium ion channels were involved. So in the same way as we used to write the paragraph of the introduction section, the example which I have shown you, so in the same way the paragraph of the result section can also be written as, it can be, so the paragraph section can also be written like, it can be written as, like, you can start with a sentence that is, for example, to verify that there are no artifacts, and then you can write in the middle, in the middle of the paragraph then presents the data and the logic to prove the claim which you have with which your paragraph has started, and then the paragraph enters with a sentence that answers the question. Okay, so the middle of the paragraph presents data and logic that pertain to the question, and the paragraph ends with a sentence that answers the question. So this is how you should write the paragraph. So this is how you should write the result section of your article. The next is rule number 8. Discuss how the gap was filled, the limitations of the interpretation, and the relevance to the field. Okay, so explain that how the results have filled the gap that was identified in the introduction, provide seaweeds to the interpretation, and describes how the paper advances the field by providing the new opportunities. So now when the discussion is being written, so there are three things which should be explained in the discussion. Main three things, that is, first is that what is the interpretation of the study or the result. The next is the limitations and the weak strengths, and the third thing is that what is the generalizability or what is the future implication or external validity of this particular study, or what does it adds to the future, and what opportunities does this studies open. Okay, so now these are the main things which you have to write in the discussion section. So rule number 8, that is how the gap was filled, the limitations of the interpretation, and the relevance to the field. So first you have to write, explained that how the results have filled the gap that was identified in the introduction, provides seaweeds to the interpretation, and describes how the paper advances the field by providing new opportunities. Okay, so same you have to write here. First, the interpretation, okay, of the results or the interpretation of the findings which are obtained from the study. Then how does that paper advances by in the field by providing the new opportunities, or what does this paper adds to the scientific literature or to the medical science. The first discussion paragraph is special in that it generally summarizes the important findings from the results section. So the first paragraph which is written in the discussion section, that is always special because it summarizes the important findings from the result section. What are the important findings from the result section? That is summarized summarized in the paragraph. Then each of the following paragraph in the discussion section starts by describing an area of weakness or strength of the paper. Then after that, each of the consecutive paragraphs which are written in the discussion section, it starts by describing that what is the strength of the paper and what is the weakness of the paper. So generally when you are writing this, so first write the strength of the paper, and then after that you can write the limitations of the paper. If you only explain the strengths and if you do not write about the limitations, that will be the biased writing or biased reporting. Okay, because every study which is done, they have certain limitations, or the researchers, they must have faced certain challenges, so you can write about those challenges also. Okay, so that it will be, so that it looks like that it is a fair balanced summary which you are writing. It is not a biased information, it is not a biased form of writing which you are sharing in your article. Okay, then rule number 9 is allocate time where it matters: title, abstract, figures, and outlining. So now these sections are viewed by far more people than the rest of the paper, and the method section is read less of all. So now whenever any time a project is provided to you, there's always a timeline. It comes with a timeline or deadline, like you have to complete it in 1 week or 2 weeks, or you have to complete it in 1 month time. Okay, so you have to, first thing which you have to do is, that is, you have to allocate your time. Like first you have to define the sections which you have to write in the paper. So sections are same, like title, abstract, then introduction, then method, then result, discussion, and the additional information. So after, you have to allocate time to each section. Like 2 days I'll give to write the title, in 2 days I'll write the abstract, then in 1 week I'll write the introduction, then in another 1 week, in another 3 days I'll write the method. So like this you have to allocate your time, and in the same time frame you should try to complete each of that section. Because when you actually start writing a paper, there are a lot of things which you have to do. Like you have to search the information also from the literature. The information which is provided to you, you have to articulate it. Then after that also you have to do the self review of the paper which you have written. So it takes time. It takes time. So for that you should, and sometimes you're writing 2 to 3 papers at the same time, so you have to give time to each of your project. So it takes time to, so the most time taking task is the literature searching and also the articulation. And generally you have to give more emphasis when you're writing the title, the abstract, and the result, and giving the figures and graphs, because the readers are most interested to go through these things. Like they will first read the title and the abstract only, and then on the basis of that it only they will decide that whether they have to go forward to read the article or not. Okay, so that should be written in a way that it always convince the readers. The title and the abstract should be written in a way that that it should convince the readers that this is the same, this is the article which they are actually looking for, and it contains all the information. At least the readers are least interested to read the methodology and all. Okay, because methodology is generally different for different types of studies, so they are not interested. So but it is not like this that you write methodology as you want. You should write methodology also in a proper way, but then for writing the methodology you can give least time, but for writing, then the time you are allocating for writing the abstract, title, and the result section. So always divide the time and try to work in that time frame only. In case if you're not able to complete your task or the project which is provided to you on time, so beforehand tell your client that due to this reason you will not be able to complete your task on time, and so you will be requiring 4 more days or 5 more days to complete it. And then the extension which you have asked for, so in that extension try to submit your like you not try, you should submit your article. Do not procrastinate it further. Otherwise it creates a very bad impression, especially when you're working as a freelancer. Okay, then rule number 10 is get feedback to reduce, reuse, and recycle the story. Okay, so now when you the so always ready to receive the feedback, whether you get the positive feedback or whether you get the negative feedback. Accept it positively. If you get the positive feedback, it is good for you. Our confidence will build up that you can also write. More efforts you will put in when you will be doing your next project. And in case if you're getting the negative feedback, so take the negative feedback as a way to learn. So always and as a medical writer you should always has a room for learning. Okay, so always open to accept negative as well as positive feedback. Negative feedbacks, you will learn that where you are lacking, what things you have to improve. And the information which you have written, like sometimes you write a lot of information which is not required, so you can reduce your information. You can reuse or recycle that information, and the same information you present in a different way. Sometimes it is the work of presentation only. The information is correct, but way of presentation is not correct. That's why the readers do not appreciate it. So always so whatever type of feedback you will get, always accept with your full always accept that feedback, and always try to improve yourself or try to move a step ahead with each of your project. Okay, so next just we'll do a quick revision of all the points which we have discussed. So first is the abstract. Okay, so abstract you have to write. The one question is, what is the question, what is the research question, what you have done, or like the methodology, what you have found, the results. And then at the conclusion you can write how does it matters, how does that finding matters, or what does it adds, or what future opportunities does this research open. Then you have to write the introduction. So in introduction you have to write about the field domain first, like what is the field, what is known in that particular research area, what are the studies which are done, what does that field knows, and what is the gap which is still existing. And then what is your approach which you have used for or methodology which you have used for doing the study. And in brief you can also write about the results which you have got. Then in the result section, first you have to give the summary methodology of the summary. summary of the methodology what you have used. Okay, and then you have to provide the data, the raw data, process data, and your final statistics. You can include the figures, tables, and graphs also in between to support your data. Then after that, you have to give the discussion section. So in the discussion section, you have to write the result. Like you have to write the conclusion, that what you have found and how the gap was filled. Then what is the limitation in filling up the gap? What is the limitation in the generalization? So what is your limitation and how to fix and interpret that limit, how to fix that limitation in future studies, how that those limitations can be overcome, how that can be fixed. And then what is your strength, and what is, why this article is useful, and what difference does this article makes. Okay, so this you have to write. Then you have to write. So now we will discuss about the rules again, like how you will know that these rules are violated, like you have not fulfilled that rules. So focus on rule number 1 was focus on one big idea, that what you're writing in the title. So the readers cannot give one sentence summary. So the readers, if your title is not written properly, then the readers will not be able to give one sentence summary, that whether your article is what is your article about, what you're writing in your article. Then write for naive humans, like that is when you have written in a very highly technical language or in a very complex manner you have presented your paper, then the many of the readers will not get the paper. Then rule number 3 is use context, content, and conclusion structure. So readers ask why something matters or what does it means. Okay, so then the readers ask that if the content, if you have not written or if you have not followed this context, content, and conclusion scheme, then the readers will always confused because everything is not explained properly. They'll confuse, or they will always have the questions that what does this mean, why this information is included in the article. Then fourth is optimize logical flow. So if there is no logical flow in the information or linear flow of content is not there, then the readers stumble on a small section of the text. So the readers will stick on the small section of the text. They will not be able to understand it properly. Then abstract. Then after that, rule number 5 is about the abstract, compact summary of the paper. So if the abstract is not written properly, then the readers will not give the elevator pitch to your work after reading it. They will not appreciate your work, or they will even not move forward to read your paper when your abstract is not written properly. It is from the abstract, the readers will not be able to understand that what actually the paper is about, what are the findings of the paper. Then introduction, why the paper matters. So in the introduction section, if the introduction section is not it is not written as it is as it should be, the readers show very little interest in the paper. Then results, why the conclusion is justified. So the readers will not so in that section, when your result is not properly justified, proper data or logic, figures in case you have not provided, then the readers do not agree with your conclusion. Okay, then the discussion. So in the discussion, you will receive discussion, preempt criticism, give future impact. So the readers are left with unanswered criticism or questions on their mind. So if in the discussion section, if it is the interpretation is not given properly, then the readers will left with some unanswered questions, unanswered criticism in their mind, and they have to look for other sources to get the answers of those questions. Okay. Then next you have to write about the allocation time wisely. So if you have not allocated your time wisely, the readers struggle to understand your central contribution despite of you having working very hard. So in spite you have worked very hard, the readers will always struggle to understand your contribution. What is your contribution? Because some points you have, some part of the paper you have written very clearly, some parts you have written in hustle because you have not allocated the time. Then iterate the story. The paper's contribution is rejected by readers, editors, or reviewers. So the final, so if these rules are not followed, or the paper is not written clearly, properly, in the transparent manner, concisely, So in that case, the paper contribution is rejected by the readers, editors, or even by the reviewers, or it will not publish at all. Okay, so if you do not want this to happen, then try to follow these rules when you're writing each section of your paper. Okay, understood? Is it clear?